I'm sorry that I was late. I was in the statistics class, my
Oh,
other
no
class.
worries. No worries. I was just waiting for the last couple of people to log in and then we'll get started.
All right.
Yeah, thank you though. Um, looks like we have 10 people, so I think we're missing like 5 people right now. Maybe they have other classes before this. We'll give our missing people just a couple more minutes and then we'll get started, whether they're with us or not, and we'll just add them as they come. While we're waiting, does anyone have any questions or comments or concerns about anything? I'm just writing down attendance because the Blackboard attendance thing is not working very well at the moment. So how was your weekend? If nobody has any questions or anything, anybody do anything interesting over the weekend? Anyone alive today?
Just
I didn't
about.
really do anything.
One person didn't do anything. And Brennan, what did you say?
You asked if we were alive. I said just about.
Just about okay. Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at a bunch of black screens with names on them. The only way I know anyone's here is if I hear from you. Although I don't have the chat open right at the moment. Let me get that because maybe there are people. Nope, nobody's even in there right now. Boy, let me see. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Okay, so I have all the names written down. I'm not sure. I think we're missing like 2 people, I think, but we'll see. Oh, here's one. Okay. All right, so how are you guys doing today?
Good.
Good, how are you?
I'm great. Yeah. I don't know. It's weird to teach in the middle of the day for me because normally I teach my GRCC classes at 7:45 in the morning. So this is the first semester in years that I haven't had classes earlier in the morning, and so it's a different feel to things, But you guys have been in classes all morning already, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. How many GRCC classes do you have this semester compared to your regular high school classes?
We have 2.
2? What's your other one?
Statistics.
Oh, yeah. How do you guys like statistics?
It's wonderful.
It's wonderful. Those would not be my words, but I admire anyone who actually enjoys that kind of stuff. That is, having to take research statistics courses is one of the biggest reasons why I chose to not pursue a PhD. I'm happy with my master's degree, and if I get another one, it'll be a master's of fine arts. So, yeah, not going the statistics route. I had to do a little bit of that for a research class, a graduate research class that I did last year, and that was enough for me. All right, I think we have everyone who is going to be with us today. So we'll go ahead and get started. We're gonna do the same thing that we have done or that we did at the beginning of last class, where I'm going to have you spend 2 minutes writing anything that comes to mind, just dumping it all out. And then you're going to have a few minutes to do the sensory inventory. And then we'll go on with our stuff for today. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so that I can share the sensory inventory with you. Actually, I need to just share the whole desktop because I may have things. All right, so we're going to start with the brain dump, which again is just spending 2 minutes writing whatever comes to mind. If you're writing by hand and you draw stuff instead, doodling, that's okay. So I'm going to go ahead and start my timer and give you your 2 minutes. Go ahead. All right, go ahead and finish up your last thought that you're writing. And we're going to then we're going to spend a couple more minutes doing our 5 senses inventory. So this you can just list and don't overthink it. Time is starting. Okay, you can finish up wherever you are on this. You can come back to it later if you would like to. But we are going to go back and make sure I have the right one. Yeah. I'm going to close that, close that, close that, close that. Okay. It's much better when I don't have too many tabs open. All right, so today, if you haven't looked at our agenda for today, we are going to talk a little bit about Habits of the Creative Mind, the readings that you were assigned, the pseudonym project you were asked to do, or the practice session you were asked to do, the right pseudonym. We are going to return to our Selfie Jamboard and discuss the statements that were made there. And then we're going to be talking about taking a position, which is leading into our first actual writing piece. And then for things that you'll do before Thursday, I made the portfolio template for project 1. So we'll look at that and remind you of how you can use that. And I've asked you to put in the right pseudonym practice session and Alice's Feet practice sessions. And then I have the readings here for the next 2 parts of the first habit orienting. So I have a question for you. Do you have your books yet, or do you know when you're getting your Habits of the Creative Mind books?
I have my book.
I'm getting mine tomorrow.
Okay. So is there anyone who doesn't have it and has no idea when they're going to be able to get it? Okay. Great. Okay, good. So I do have, again, I do have those scanned for you, those 2 sections that I'm asking you to read scanned for you. That way, those of you that don't have the book yet don't have to worry about it. You've got it right there. And then when you do get the book, you can just start using your book. I do not have any other readings on here that I can see. I don't think I'll be adding anything to do before Tuesday as far as readings. So you should be able to just get your book sometime this week, and then you'll have that for next week.
So when you say due before Thursday, is that Wednesday at midnight?
Well, this is things you should finish before class. So if I want you to submit something on Blackboard, I'll either tell you that it needs to be submitted before class on Thursday or by midnight or 11:59 the night before. If I don't give you a specific time, like this is just adding things to your portfolio, I want you to do that before we get to Thursday's class for 2 reasons. One, so that you can get those things in the right place and not have to worry about them. And 2, so that if you have any trouble with it, you can ask during class on Thursday. And then reading those selections before class starts on Thursday. I mean, if you get up at 5 o'clock in the morning on Thursday and read them then, I don't mind. It's, it's up to you. So if there's a specific time and submission that I need you to do, I will give you that. Otherwise, you can assume that it's just before class starts. Any other questions you guys have right now? Okay. I don't know if I've told you guys or not, but just so you know, I know it looks like I'm looking up a lot of times, and I am because I have a larger screen behind my laptop screen, and it's, I have to look up at it because it's up higher and it's larger. So sometimes students are wondering why I'm always looking up if I'm rolling my eyes at them or something. I'm not. It's just the positioning of the screens that I'm using. All right. So if there aren't any more questions just about class or about anything, then we should start talking about Habits of the Creative Mind. You were asked to read that short essay on the joys of pseudonymous writing. And then you were asked to follow that up with practice session 2, part 1, the right pseudonym. So by this time, you should have created a pseudonym that allows you to be a more creative thinker. And you should have an idea of that pseudonym's habits of mind, their thinking style, their writing style, and that. So I would love to hear some of these pseudonyms that you have, and what your thoughts are about the idea of writing under this kind of secret identity. So you can either type in the chat or you can speak out loud. Remember, the only way I know that you're here and you're paying attention is if you're participating.
Mine was Grace. So hers is basically that she's someone who doesn't really follow the rules of writing, and she likes to try different types of writing styles. So she always changes up the way she writes, like different perspectives and stuff. She's open-minded and she has diverse writing methods. So, so she is able to relate to the everyday reader.
Okay. So why did you choose for her to not really follow the rules of writing? Is that because you try really hard to follow the rules of writing and you feel like this is something that if you didn't have to, you could just kind of be a little more free?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Sounds like you have a really interesting character there, and you're going to be putting your character to work soon. So, is there anything that you feel you need Grace to think about or do as she's getting ready to write her first project?
Probably just practice and try to decide how she wants to approach the project.
Yeah. Right, good. Those are some good thoughts. Thank you for sharing. Let's see, we have some in the chat here. Jesse Pinkman. And Brennan likes the idea of not always writing under his own name because there's more room to be creative and don't have to be himself all the time. Yeah. I like that idea of more room to be creative. And I think Grace has that room as well. She's got her she just doesn't need to follow the rules. And when you don't need to follow the rules, then you can be more free and more open and more creative, I think. All right. What are some other pseudonyms, characters that you created, and how do they express themselves? So only 2 of you did the assignment? Is that what I'm supposed to take away here? Oh. Sherlock Holmes. All right. Being casual and not doing everything from the rules. Okay. I mean, if the rest of you didn't do this assignment, you need to get it done. This does go into your portfolio. This is a part of the first project. You really can't do the next part of this project if you haven't done this session. So Elijah's jumped in here, and Keith is always observant and speaks common sense when needed and helps others. All right, so all right. Let's see. So Keith's let's see. There we go. Keith is always observant and speaks common sense when needed and helps others. Keith is going to have a pretty easy time of this project that we're doing, I think. So those are some good qualities there, being observant and speaking common sense. Elijah, is that something that you don't do very often? Did you create someone who is kind of the opposite of you, or did you create someone who has some of your characteristics, but maybe has them in a better way or a different way than what you usually do?
So for my character, it is both. Like most time, most time I am observant,
Mm-hmm.
but the common sense part, I won't say when needed, because I'm more like I said, because I'm observant, like I'm mostly quiet unless I know I have something to say.
Yeah. All right. Good. And then Brennan's added here to Jesse's style of writing is very laid back, rather minimalist even. However, he's open-minded and doesn't tend to overthink. I like that, doesn't tend to overthink. That's one of, I know my biggest obstacles in writing is trying to overthink. My biggest obstacles in life is overthinking things, but definitely in writing. So Jesse's definitely got some good qualities there in being able to be open-minded, just going with the flow. Let me see here. Just a second. We have Jana is joining us. All right. Okay, anyone else want to chime in? And remember, if you did not do this assignment yet, please get this done. You will thank yourself when you find out what the rest of the project is. Great. Okay, so let's go ahead and switch over then to the reading that you were supposed to do and the little or the exercise you were supposed to do for today. You had to read on finding your feet, and then you were asked to read the beginnings of Alice in Wonderland, and then write about finding your own feet, orienting yourself as a reader and as a writer. So let's hear, what are your thoughts? What are the things that stood out to you, or the things that you question, first of all, in the essay on finding your feet? Remember, you can type in the chat or you can speak up.
Wait, what was the question again?
I'm asking you to share some of your observations, some of the things you found interesting, or the things you question about the essay on finding your feet.
Oh, okay.
Something I found interesting was how something that's interesting to us can be boring to other people.
Yeah.
And everything has the potential to be made interesting.
Okay. And do you, what was your first instinct to agree or disagree with those statements that are made in this essay? Nothing is inherently interesting and anything can be or has the potential to be made interesting. And that's not just for Layla, but anyone can answer that. What were your instinctual responses to those questions or those statements? Sorry.
At first I disagree with it because I'm like, well, math is boring. Like no one likes math. But then I remembered like there's mathematicians and people who actually do that for a living and something that they really like. So I think that I kind of had open mind when I reapproached it,
Mm-hmm.
and I kind of started to agree with it. So I was like, okay, it makes sense now.
All right. Your comment about math made me laugh because I've always been one who's like, ugh, math, ick. But I did find an interest in math when I stumbled across some videos doodling in math class. I think her name is Vi Hart. And she does these doodling in math class videos, which are actually they're very intelligent videos and they're really interesting. And I learned a lot about math by watching those. Just found them on YouTube one day. So that was kind of fun. And Braden says it's hard to disagree with those statements. Why do you think it's hard to disagree with them, Braden? Ah, subjective, yes. And I think that's the point here. I think that's the point about it. Nothing is inherently interesting. Everything has the potential to be made interesting, is that it is subjective, that everything, all interests are subjective. And let's see. So we have one comment that I'm not sure which statement is being disagreed with. Nothing is inherently interesting or anything has the potential to be made interesting. But in any case, the writer of this message says, I disagreed with it because while it can be interesting to some people, not everyone will see it the same way. And I mean, I think that's the point of the whole thing, though, is that for some people, things can be interesting, but even things that we wouldn't expect to be interesting can be made interesting. There is the potential, and there's no qualification that people have to see things the same way. So, what other things did you observe? Did that stood out to you, or that you questioned in this short essay?
I like the part where it was talking about how like you, when approaching something that you don't know anything about, instead of like getting frustrated or like getting angry at it, you should be like motivated and curious rather than like just be emotional about it.
Uh-huh.
Anything solved.
Yeah. I think that's a good reminder to us, especially those of us, and I'm sure there are some of us in this group right now who things come easily. Maybe maybe school just comes easily, even though we're better at some subjects than others. We're used to things just coming easily, and then when we're challenged by something, we tend to have this kind of bristling response, instead of embracing the opportunity, embracing this unknown as something exciting, and offering us a peek at the world that we haven't had yet. So I think that's a good thing to make note of in this essay. Let's see. Instead of staying in your comfort zone, you need to expand your horizon, explore more in order to learn and live with more excitement. Yes, I definitely agree with that, Elijah. That's a good takeaway from this essay. Any others? Any other things that stand out to you, that that challenge you, that you question? Well, then you were asked to read the first 2 chapters of Alice in Wonderland, and then consider the questions. What does it mean for Alice to find her feet in Wonderland? What work have you had to do as a reader to put yourself into Carol's story? What does finding your feet have to do with orienting yourself as a reader and as a writer? So what were some of the things that came out of this writing exercise that you did? What are some of the points that you made, even some that maybe you surprised yourself with?
When I asked like how she finds her, or she tries to find her feet,
Mhm.
I think this is what I got from it, at least. Like, she, instead of getting worked up about everything and freaking out, and trying to chase after the cat with the clock or whatever, she like tried to figure figure the whole thing out for herself, and not and like be more of an individual rather than trying to get answers from people.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's a pretty fair assessment of how Alice handled herself in this situation. How does that then relate to finding your own feet, or orienting yourself as a reader and a writer? What are some things we can take away there?
Maybe about well, as a writer,
Mhm.
finding out like your individual style or voice in writing that you want to portray. And then as a reader, I said that it will help you like figure out the angle of approach of the author and what they're trying to tell the readers.
Good. Those are both good observations, good kind of takeaways or applications of this experience. And I would add to your kind of discovering yourself as a writer and discovering your style and everything, that requires a lot of experimenting, practicing, trying things out, which often, especially in our school work, we don't have the opportunity to do a lot of that experimenting, because most of the time we're given an assignment and we're given a specific way to follow that assignment and to complete it. And we know that our teachers are expecting to see a certain product, and we do our best to meet their expectations. And so a lot of times we are not being authentic in the way we present ourselves as writers. So one of the things that we're going to work on in this class is that while you will have guidelines and structures that are supposed to be followed, you should have a lot of freedom within those to be expressive and to be authentic as a writer. Other takeaways, other ideas or discoveries that you made maybe about yourself as a reader, as a writer, in doing the writing part of this activity?
Uh,
Someone was just trying to speak, but you kept cutting out, so I didn't hear that. If you want to try again, that's great. If somebody else wants to chime in, that's great too.
Gary?
Somebody's trying to speak. I can't tell who it is right now, though. Oh, I thought it might have been you, but I couldn't tell. It was like at first it was breaking up, Elijah, and then it just didn't. There was no sound at all coming through. So I don't know, maybe you want to type it in the chat box what you were going to say. I think some days our internet connections are just going to be worse than others, and we'll just go with that. Oh, he got kicked out. Okay. Thank you for letting me know, because it doesn't always show me. I can't see everyone on the list at once. So, all right, we'll see. Okay. Is there anyone else who's willing to share anything from your work, or just summary? You don't even have to read it. Just tell us about it or write about it in the chat box. Remember, one of the big parts of this class is discussion, which requires participation.
Was this the assignment that you spoke to us about before last in the class?
Yeah.
The one on the agenda?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
This was reading on finding your feet and then doing practice session 1.
Okay, I'm gonna pull those up.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Jana.
I had tried. I tried and I read it, and I just didn't really understand about the feet part. Like when it was like, what does it mean to be? I didn't really understand it. That's why I really wasn't saying anything.
Okay.
Cause I kind of, yeah. So I read it, and I read like the first whole like thing, and it just like, it talked about her feet a little bit, but it didn't really make sense. Like it wouldn't have made sense if I would have said what I thought in my writing. So I did it, but it's not a lot. Like it's not a lot. I just like kind of guessed.
Okay. And that is a legitimate response, saying I didn't really understand it. I tried, but I just didn't. I don't know. That's a legitimate response to this. So that's why I ask, does anyone have any questions? I know, Johnny, you came late to class, so I'm not picking on you with this. I'm just saying in general, that's why I keep asking if people have questions, because I want you to be able to say, hey, so I looked at this, I read it, I thought about it, but I just don't get it. Can you help me understand it? Otherwise, I don't know. Especially in an online class like this, that's the way I have to know these things. So where it's talking about finding her feet, I know Alice in Wonderland is just a weird book. And Dean's in the same boat as you, Jana. You're not alone. You have company there. So Alice in Wonderland is a weird book, and I'll be the first to admit it's not my favorite book, but there are some parts of it that are useful, especially when thinking about writing. So when we talk about finding our feet, it's a way of like finding our place, our stand, like ground to stand on, some way of orienting ourselves, which is this habit that we're reading about, is orienting or finding our place and finding the direction that we're going. So Alice, she finds herself down this rabbit hole and in this world that she doesn't understand, and she has to get up and figure out what's going on and how to get where she needs to be and how to solve problems, right? She has to be a creative thinker in that. She has to be a logical thinker in that. She has to ask the right questions or find the right questions to ask. And so she's working on trying to, get her feet under her so that she can move in the direction she needs to go, whatever that direction is. So we were supposed to be then thinking about that in terms of ourselves as readers and as writers. And it sounds like at least a couple of you were kind of in an Alice in Wonderland experience with the beginning of this book, with this essay on finding your feet, where you were kind of confused and you didn't really know what you were supposed to be understanding and taking away from this. And it left you feeling maybe a little disoriented, a little like you didn't know where you were and what was going on. So when we come to a reading like this, how do we go about finding our feet? How do we go about orienting ourselves as readers to figure out, well, what is this and what am I supposed to do with it and how am I supposed to do things with it? And then the same thing as a writer. And so, some of the things we've been hearing are, just stopping and thinking creatively and using skills to solve problems and things like that. So one of the things that I would say is asking questions, being willing, which I know is hard because it's hard for me, but being willing to say, I don't really know. I don't understand this. I don't know what's going on. I need some help with this. And for many of us, that's a really hard thing to say, but it's part of that process of orienting ourselves and of being able then to go on and move forward or backwards or sideways, whatever direction we need to be going. Does that make sense? A little more sense to those of you who have expressed some disorientation?
That made like a lot more, like that. Now it makes sense.
Okay.
That made more sense then.
Yeah. Great. See, aren't you glad you said that you were having trouble with it?
Yes.
Excellent. All right, so that's what I want you guys to be willing to do. Jana, thank you for speaking up and sharing your disorientation so that we could try to help create some orientation out of that. And I'm hoping then that this whole idea of orienting as a habit is starting to make a little more sense to all of you, especially those who are looking at it like, I don't even know what that means. Anyone else have any questions or insights or comments based on this reading and this writing activity? Or is anyone saying, oh, I think I know what to do now. I'm going to do that activity this afternoon or this evening so that I can get it done and be ready to go to the next thing. We've got some yeses here. Good. I'm glad to hear that. I'm also going to put in a little plug for Google Chat, guys. It works just like texting. You can put an app on your phone. You can have the Google Chat or the Hangout app on your phone. And I sent you all an email last week with a link to join the class like master chat. And then I'll be setting up smaller chats as we do some more small group work, just so that you have a way to so that you have a way to communicate in a GRCC approved manner. And it's a little bit easier, I think, than dealing with the Blackboard discussion boards. So I'm going to encourage you to use that chat. You can always, you know, I'm one of those people, my phone is always attached. It's near me at all times. So, you know, if you do have questions, you can just send them in the chat, and most times of the day and even into the evening, I'll be able to answer, I'll be able to respond. We have a question here. Let's see. No. Okay. So this was asked in a direct message to me, but I'll just mention it because I know that sometimes you have certain things you're used to about these. But the question was, do we have to answer any questions about the reading? And I'm assuming that means about like the essay on finding your feet that I assigned for you to read. And no, I don't have comprehension questions that I have you ask, like what does the author mean when he says this or that or the other. What I do ask you to do is, as you're reading, write down your own thoughts and ideas and questions. Mark them in the margins of your book if you're allowed to write in your books. I don't know if you are. If not, sticky notes work great. There are little mini ones. You can take big ones and cut them into pieces if you want and just stick them right in there. I have sticky notes all over the book already. You can, you know, keep a notebook where you write down your thoughts and ideas. I would practice, if reading is not your biggest strength, I would just practice kind of summarizing back after every paragraph. What did you understand from that paragraph? I'm not going to ask you to take quizzes on the reading, but we do discuss the reading. So I do want you to be prepared to chime in with discussion and share your thoughts and ideas. The practice exercises, you may have some questions that are based on the reading and on some activities related to it. I hope that answers your question. All right. Any other thoughts or questions you want to ask right now about the reading assignment and the practice session 1, Alice's Feet, or going back to the right pseudonym practice session, sorry. Oh, good, glad. Okay. If you do think of questions, please chime in and you know, ask your questions. I do have the chat thing open, and I'm trying to keep track of new messages that come in for those of you who aren't able to speak up for whatever reason. All right, so we are going to take a look at our.
I'm sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
My computer just told me it's about to time me out, so if it's about to like go black on me, so I don't know if it's gonna kick me out or not. So I'll join back out.
Alright.
I'll join back when it turns
Okay.
on.
All right, sounds good. Right. Okay, so last class we were doing some work with selfies and you did some writing about your own selfies, and then we had some small discussion groups. And I asked you in those discussion groups, after doing some categorizing, some making connections and that, I asked you if your group had to do a project based on the work we've been doing with selfies, what would your thesis be? Now, you didn't have a lot of time for this, so you have some pretty rough thesis statements here, which is fine. So we're going to look at some of these and think about what are the arguments, if any, that are being made. So the first one that was posted, people will change their demeanor depending on what they are doing and who they are with. So what kind of argument is being made here, and what kind of project could come out of this? People will change their demeanor depending on what they're doing and who they are with.
It's basically saying like, people have a personality,
Mm-hmm.
but like it can vary depending on who they're with and what they're doing exactly. Because like you don't act the same as you do around your boss or manager, like how you act with your friends.
Right. We showed different parts of our personality with different people and situations, right? And Dean says people try their hardest to fit in with a different audience. That's something to hold on to there. Trying to fit in with a different audience. That has something to do with our writing that we're going to be talking about coming up. So we're going to hold on to that thought right there. But the other part of it, yeah, people do try their hardest to fit in with the group that they're with or with the people that they want to be associated with. So what does that say about people? Like, what bigger message could we take if we were to develop this into a project? If you guys, the three of you, were to have to make, say, a PowerPoint presentation, what would be the deeper message that you would want to finally arrive at, do you think? And I know I'm putting you on the spot, and I'm going to do this with all the groups. And I know that we're not spending a lot of time right now researching and thinking, but just as an exercise in, this is a starting place. And most of us would agree with this, or if not all of us would agree with this statement. People change their demeanor depending on what they're doing and who they're with. But what is the bigger message behind that? What is the real heart that we need to get to with this, do you think? Just off the top of your heads. Any ideas? Oh, good. Somebody joined in. Yeah, you guys can join in the Jamboard too. That way you can just write on it if you want to. In fact, right now, if you have ideas of where this, or like maybe not the end point, but what the direction, what direction this particular statement could lead us in. And those, let's see, we've got asking the Jamboard, that it is linked in today's agenda. Let me just show you that right there where it says selfie Jamboard right under on finding your feet. So if you go on to the week 2 agenda, and then you can join the Jamboard right there. If anyone has any ideas about a direction that this and it might be I mean, it is a challenging question for right now. So maybe I would ask a question about this is how does this overall? So I might ask this question in response to this statement. How does this chameleon-like behavior affect a person's overall mental health and well-being? What does it do to us when we feel like we have to change ourselves or change the aspects of ourselves that we share with different people?
So we're just going to like certain one, or are we going to anyone and just writing a sticky note responding to it?
I think that would be what I would like you to do. Yes. So let's look at the other statements, and then I'll give you guys a few minutes to just put your sticky notes in on the different ones. And you can put in questions, you can put in like ideas of where this project could maybe go, or things you want more clarification about in the statement, anything like that. So I'm gonna look at the next one that says motivation comes from a positive mindset, not laziness or a negative mindset. So if you want to be motivated, be positive, right? So that's one of our statements. The next one made is when people take pictures of themselves, they curate them in a way to portray themselves the way they want people seeing the selfies to view them. This can often differ from the way they actually are because we are likely to hide the things we don't like about ourselves. All right. And we have showcasing your values online changes the aspect of social media. And this is, I believe, the last one. You have the ability to portray yourself however you want, especially through social media. All right. So those are our those are our group statements. And then I've given you one example of, a question you could ask. Maybe you have other, just responses to that. Maybe you want to clarify or ask for clarification on a term. But what are your thoughts just looking at these statements? Take a few minutes and add your own sticky notes or text boxes in, or use the drawing pen if you want to, however you want to add your own thoughts into this. I am seeing some good contributions here. I'm going to give you a couple more minutes to add more to any of the boards, especially those that maybe are a little less colorful than others with post-it notes. So, try to comment or ask questions about a few of these. Ideally, one for each board would be great. I'm going to step out of the room for 1 minute and I will be right back. I have to check on something. So I will be right back. I'm going to look at what we have here. Oh, that's an interesting point right there. Okay. So as you look through these boards, what are some things that are posted that give you a little pause for thought? What are the things that catch your attention? The questions or statements that make you think? What are some of those? Elijah, I could not hear anything coming through.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. I was saying like when someone posts on can social media be a positive motivator?
Mm-hmm.
So like my response is like it can, but also like you just have to be like you just gotta be careful like what type of motivation comes from social media, because not all social media or what you see can be a positive thing.
Okay. That's a good point. Like not all of social media can be positive. What are some other questions or comments that stand out to you that make you think?
Truly, how believable is pretending things on social media? You know, like I'm on slide 6. I just posted that question.
Okay.
Because they said the ability to portray yourself the way you want. I said, how, like, if someone is pretending to portray themselves something they aren't, how believable is it? Like, truly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, that's a good question. How believable is it?
Can I answer that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, well, what I think when I wrote that sentence, what I thought was like, there are pros and cons to that. It could be a self-confidence booster if you're being honest. Because if you're not being honest, it's how real is it to you? It's not, because you really know the truth. And to other people, you can lie about yourself on social media, and that's how like catfishing works. And like there's like horror stories about it, like people get kidnapped and stuff like that. Like it could be a good and a bad thing if you're being truthful.
Yes. So do you think, and this is like a general question, not just to Natalie, but do you think that you can ever truly know someone through social media?
No, I don't think so.
No.
All right, because that goes back to that, like, how believable is it and how honest are we even with ourselves, I guess, in what we post on social media? Yeah, I tell people, go ahead.
Can I add on to what Natalie said?
Absolutely. Of course.
So when people post on social media, they usually only post like the good things, or like if they look good in it, or like for example, if somebody posts when they're happy like all the time, then people will think that they're just happy all the time. But if you really meet them, then it might be completely different.
Yes.
So that's why you should always get to know somebody off of social media, because it's not always the same.
Right. Yeah, we tend to, that goes back to that idea of the curated self. We tend to post the things that are going to be the best versions of who we are, what we want people to see us as. Let's see, we've got, where did it go? Okay. Let's see. Oh, there we go. Okay. So it just, I thought of that because I watched this Indonesian movie last night, and it was this really young guy and girl. Like the girl was just finishing high school, and then this guy was, I think, 20 years old. So they're like 18 and 20, and they were going to get married. And so the guy who was going to do the marriage ceremony or approve the marriage ceremony, however that works in Indonesia, was asking them, well, do you guys even know each other? And the girl was like, nope, I don't know this guy very well. I mean, we've only met a few times and talked a few times and that. And the guy's like, I know all about her. I follow her on Instagram. And so I know all these things. And it did turn out good. Like that made me very skeptical of this guy, because I was like, creepy stalker dude. But it turned out okay in the movie. But I don't think that's very realistic. Like, I think that you only know what, or people only know about you what you want them to know about you from your postings, and the interactions that you have in commenting and sending messages and things like that. So what are some of the are there other ones that kind of stand out to you, other comments or statements or questions in here that that kind of stand out or that you want to respond to?
So for my groups, I'm on slide 5, and it says, I said showcasing your values online changes the aspect of social media. And there are a lot of questions about like which aspect. So I would say more so the belief that people have to post things to impress others. And I think that, like, when I say aspect, I mean more so like the negative aspect of it, that, you know, you can only post your cute selfies or you and your boyfriend or your friends or something. So I think that if people were to post things about their personality or things that they like to do, posting on social media would be more enjoyable, and they wouldn't have this thought that they can only post certain things.
Okay. Yeah, that makes a lot more sense. I think that yeah, I think that I understand what you were saying there. I hope the others who are asking for more details are getting that impression as well. I did add the sticky note just to as the clarifier there, um, of what you were just saying, the belief that people have to post things to impress others. So, like, well, do you guys know how Facebook got started?
No.
No. Um, so back in the old days, before all this social media stuff, um, colleges would have these like kind of a lot of colleges, not all of them, but a lot of them, like the smaller ones especially, would have these kind of photo books of the incoming freshman students, and with a picture and their name, and I think some of them would have like their hometown and stuff like that, but it was very brief, and they were called meet books. I'll let you guys think about what that means. But then the Zuckerberg and some of his friends got together and made this computer version, basically, and that grew into Facebook. And so it was originally a way to make connections with people and to, you know, just kind of socialize online. And now we've got all kinds of social media, and we are using it for many more different things than it originally was developed for. And so, like, social media has just become something much different than it used to be, or that it originally was. And I think a lot of that has to do with this, especially once people were able to start posting photos, and when people started posting more selfies and that, then it's become this more a place you go to impress people. And many of us, it's still a place to keep connected. When I first joined Facebook, I refused to have any local people as my friends. I just absolutely refused any friend requests from local people. It was all people that I knew from like high school or college or other parts of my life, that were not living in this area but were elsewhere, and in grad school, and that because my grad school classmates were from all over the world, really. And then, you know, gradually I'd start making exceptions for the local people, and then that became a way of just communicating normally everyday stuff as well. So like it's evolved a lot. So one thing we could think about is, what will social media become? And do you think we'll ever move away from this need to present a particular view of ourselves on social media? Those are just questions to think about, but if anyone wants to respond to them now, that's fine. So, Janai, are you saying you don't think we'll ever move away from this need to present this curated view of ourselves? Yeah, okay. That's what I thought you were saying. Just wanted to make sure. But does anyone else agree or disagree with the idea? We have the statement that we don't think we'll ever move away from that use of social media. Okay. We are going to kind of shift our gears a little bit right now, and we're going to look at this taking a position. Let's see. Right. Taking a position, the reasoned argument. The first writing project, the actual like paper, if you want to call it that you're going to be doing for this class is an open letter, which I understand you wrote an open letter last semester as well. Is that correct? Or in English 101, whichever semester you had that.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So you should be familiar with the idea of an open letter. And on Thursday, we'll talk more about that, and I'll ask you to kind of share what you already know about the open letter and that. But the twist on this project is that you're going to be writing the open letter under your pseudonym that you've created. So if you haven't done that, if you haven't created your pseudonym yet, not just making up a name, but also the whole characteristic of this person, this character, that you can imagine that you're creating a character for a story you're writing or for a TV show that you want to produce or something like that. But if that helps you to create your character or to develop your character a little more, those of you that started it are already. But you're going to be writing your open letter under your pseudonym. And so it's got to be your pseudonym's voice and thought patterns and writing style that you'll be using for this project. So that's where a little bit of kind of creativity comes in and changes it up a bit from the open letter that you wrote in English 101. So taking a position, the reasoned argument. I used to call this an opinion project, but that would create some confusion because opinions, while are valid because we hold our opinions, I have a particular opinion about the way I drink coffee and the way I think coffee should be experienced. I'm one of those people who will order hot coffee on a 100-degree summer day because coffee should be hot. That's just my opinion. And that's from my own experience. And it's valid because it is my experience, because I prefer hot coffee. I have had cold coffee. I've had iced coffee before. I don't particularly enjoy it. So I have my views about my hot coffee. But that's an opinion. And so far, it's not a reasoned argument. So we're writing a reasoned argument. Our open letter, yes, it's going to be our particular view, our particular opinion on something, but it's not just saying, well, my experience says, so this is the way it should be. We are building on evidence, right? So taking a position, the reasoned argument, first thing we have to understand is that arguments are rhetorical. What do I mean by rhetorical? This is a quiz to see what you remember from 101.
Like not meant to be answered, meant to just think about it.
Nope, but thanks for trying. That's what we usually think of with rhetorical. So I'm actually glad you mentioned that. So we usually think of, oh, that's just rhetoric. That's just rhetorical question. We don't have to answer that. We don't have to respond to that. But rhetoric itself is something different. It's more than that, I should say. Does anyone remember any more about what rhetoric is and what makes arguments rhetorical? So we've got a starting point.
Persuading
Ah,
readers.
yeah, there's that element of persuasion that's necessary. So when we say arguments are rhetorical, that means that they are a reasoned set of statements and evidence intended to persuade a particular audience to consider a specific position on an issue where there are likely to be opposing views. So our arguments have to be reasoned. They have to be built on statements of and evidence. They have to be persuasive or intended to persuade. They're directed to a specific audience, and they're taking a specific position. And that's on a topic where there are likely to be opposing views. So if we were to say that it's cloudy today, that's a statement of fact, right? Unless you're not here in West Michigan right now. It's cloudy today, right? What if we have just winter is better than summer? If somebody were to come up and say, well, winter is better than summer, is that an argument?
Oh, it's an opinion.
Okay, it falls more into the opinion. Because it's one thing, it's not a very well developed statement, and another, it really depends on you know who's experiencing it. Could we turn that statement though into an argument? And if so, what will we have to do to turn it into an argument?
Give reasoning.
Say that one more time.
Give reasoning or evidence. Probably.
Okay. We'd have to have reasoning and evidence. What else would we have to do? Any ideas? Excuse me. Okay, so to take that statement, winter is better than summer, we would have to give it more context. In order to get the right reasons and evidence, we'd have to have more context. So if we were to say that winter is better than summer for outdoor sports, we would still have, we'd have an area of conflict there. We'd still have some ambiguity there even, because what sports are we talking about? So if we were to say winter is better than summer for skiing and snowboarding and things like that, then yeah, obviously, that's pretty clear. And so again, that's not really much of an argument, because people aren't really going to disagree with you. If you're talking about snow skiing, winter is better than summer for that. In fact, in Michigan, you can't really snow ski in the summer. So we're looking at that. So those are still kind of opinion-based. But if you were to try and say a statement of like, winter is better than summer for, I don't know. I had a moment ago, I had a place I was going to go with that, and now I've forgotten what I was going to say. So if anyone has an idea of how can you make it more of a debatable statement rather than just an opinion? Or can you think of another example, anyone? No? Okay. That's okay, because we're going to keep looking and we'll have some other examples that are going to come up. But the point here is that there's a difference between opinion and between an argument. And so we're
So-
looking for a reasoned argument. Yeah.
So this just came up yesterday, and one of my friends, we were kind of arguing about it, but would baseball being harder than softball, would that be a argument?
Like meaning more difficult? Like
Yeah.
it's more difficult to play baseball than softball? I think that could be if you had, pretty well set criteria that you could compare the two.
So for example, like I use like the distance of the field and like how much ground you have to cover, the speed of the pitch,
Mm-hmm.
stuff like that.
Yeah. Especially, I would say it would make more sense to compare baseball and fast pitch softball than slow pitch softball. Because I think in fast pitch softball, you still have a slower pitch than in baseball, correct?
Correct. Yeah, that's what I did.
Yeah.
That's right.
So yeah, that would be something that you could make a reasoned argument about. That is correct. Yeah, because then you have specific points of criteria that you are comparing the two sports, and ultimately you're hoping that your evidence shows that baseball is in fact more difficult than fast pitch softball based on those pieces of criteria and the evidence to support them. So yeah, that's a good example. Thank you. So when we do have a reasoned argument, we have specific rhetorical moves that we have to make. Whether we're writing or speaking or just debating amongst our friends, we still do these things. And we don't necessarily do them completely in this order or in an ABC kind of order, but sometimes we kind of circle around and come back and take a more meandering path. But we have to state the position and make claims about it. So baseball is more difficult than fast pitch softball in certain ways. What are the certain claims about it? And then we have to present logical reasons and evidence supporting the claims. We have to make sure that that evidence really does support the claims that we're trying to make. And we also have to anticipate the likely objections that we might get and counter those often before they're even raised, especially as writers. We have to anticipate them and address them in our writing, whereas in a debate setting, often you don't respond to them until the rebuttal section of the debate. Have any of you been in a debate team or class before? No? That's okay. So behind the scenes, before we can get to a point of being able to really state our argument and our claims, we want to understand the audience and what they will respond to. I think we had a statement about that in our discussion earlier. Let me scroll back up here in the chat and find people try their hardest to fit in with a different audience. We do that as writers, not in the same exact way as we do in social media postings, but we do that as writers or to be effective, we have to understand our audience and we have to know what they're going to respond to. And we also have to understand the context of the larger conversation and gather information relating to the position that we're taking. So we don't just look for the evidence that's going to support our claims, but we understand the broader conversation. What are other people's claims and how are they supporting those claims? So that we know the context that we're working in. There are a few different kinds of arguments. There's the causal argument, which is an argument in support of a position that one thing causes another, such as spending time on social media serves as a distraction from more focused activities. That is an argument that someone could make, that social media causes distraction. But we also have to beware of co-occurring events that are not causal. Correlation does not necessarily mean causation. So just because things happen at the same time or about the same time doesn't mean that one causes the other. There's the definition argument, and that attempts to define one thing in terms of another. So we have collecting massive amounts of data on US citizens is a violation of our right to privacy. Well, in order to really argue that statement, we have to define what we mean by the right to privacy. What is the standard definition, the accepted definition of the right to privacy? And then we can get into whether or not collecting massive amounts of data on US citizens is a violation of that right. Some of the other types of arguments we have are evaluative arguments, and that's where you see those in like movie and music and video game and restaurant reviews. We have proposal arguments, which are a call for action, a particular course of action, such as changing copyright laws, whether it's to make it harder or easier to use other people's material. And then we have counter arguments, which we mentioned in a previous slide as one of our rhetorical moves, and that is attempting to refute or oppose a claim and responding to terms and claims that other people bring up. So those are, sometimes you can have an entire project that's counter argument, but that's not typical. Those usually come within these other projects, within these other kinds of arguments, such as the evaluative or the proposal or the causal arguments. So these terms should be familiar to you from English 101, but all arguments need to appeal in some way or another to the audience, and the different levels of appeal or different focuses of appeal will depend a lot on the audience and the context and the purpose. So the one that we always have to have is logos, the appeal to reason, to the forcefulness of a well thought out and well structured position. Any reasoned argument has to have logos. Pathos comes in more, in certain types of argument more than others, and that's the use of emotion in an argument. If you're trying to tug at someone's heartstrings, or if you're trying to make them angry or something like that, you will use certain types of language and statements that get at that pathos, but they can't be, in a reasoned argument, cannot be at the expense of logos. And then ethos is the credibility that a speaker or writer brings to the subject that he or she is communicating about. And so often that is the writer, him or herself, being credible as far as having the right qualifications and the expertise in that. But we as student writers, we don't have those kinds of qualifications and expertise. I don't think anyone in this class amongst the students is, a PhD level expert in any topic right now, even though that many of you know a lot about certain things, certain activities or ideas or things that you're, interested in. You wouldn't be considered that kind of expert in an academic world yet, but what you can do is the sources that you use. If you use and you bring credible sources, authoritative sources to your debate, your argument, then you become credible as well. So we have to have that ethos no matter what kind of argument we're making. All right, so that was a quick run through, a quick introduction to the reasoned argument. Does anyone have any questions about it? I think it should be basically a review of things that you worked on in English 101. which is why I kind of went through it quickly. Right, in the last couple of minutes that we have, I want to show you when you click on this link here in the agenda, you have the On Finding Your Feet portfolio. All I did was take the English 101 final portfolio and revise it for this project. The titles are already in there for the things that will be in this project. Yes, you will have a reflective letter, but it's not going to be the same as your English 101 letter. It's different than that. And then you have, see the right pseudonym practice session, Alice's feet practice session, and then we have some other things in here that you can look through on your own. One thing I want to make sure I say before anyone has to log off is that to use this template, you can either come over to the download button and download it to your computer and then open it in Microsoft Word, and it's already an editable template at that point. If you're using Google Docs, you come to this open with and click on the little caret, and then you can open it with Google Docs. And I'll just show you, it opens right in Google Docs. Now, at this point, it's still in my Google Drive. So what you need to do is you need to make sure that you are signed in over where that little circle is. You want to make sure that you're signed into your account. And then once you are signed into your Google account, you can come over to File, and you can come to make a copy. And then once you make that copy, you can choose your own folder to put it in. And it'll be in your Google Drive, and then you will be able to edit it from there. And if you run into any problems with that, just let me know and we'll figure it out. We'll troubleshoot it together. I know some of you have to take off because you have other classes and buses and things, but if anyone has any questions, feel free to stay on and ask your questions or send them to me, email or Google Chat. So that is what I have for you today. So those of you who need to take off, you are welcome to do that. Anyone who has questions, I can stick around. Bye, Janaya.
I have a question, like once everybody leaves.
Okay. Let's see. Kellen and Jana, do either of you have any questions?
Yeah, I just said I had a question. That was me.
Oh, sorry. I thought it looked like it was Dean who was talking. Sorry.
Sorry, that was me. Yeah, I have a question.
Okay. Do you want to go ahead and ask your question, Jana? Or if you guys have private questions, I can just open a breakout room.
Oh, that's okay. Actually, I didn't really have a question. I think I just wanted to hear other people's questions just in case I needed to know whatever they need to know.
Okay. Yeah. Dean, do you have a question? Are you still with us?
All right, so I just need, so I was pretty lost on like what we were doing at the beginning of class.
Like,
So like what we were supposed to have done before our class.
okay. So let's look at the week 1 agenda.
Oh, okay. So I remember exactly what I was going to ask you. Could you put like whatever's due before, like not specifically a due date, but like in Blackboard, like you know where it says assignments, like in upcoming, like.
The assignment section in Blackboard, I'm just using for turning in work.
Oh, okay.
So the homework I always put in the agendas.
Okay.
And so here we have to do before Tuesday on the agenda. And so it asks you to do that practice session, the right pseudonym, because you already needed to read the joys of pseudonymous writing.
Okay.
And
Well,
give
so I got close contact, so I haven't been at school since Thursday. And
Oh,
so,
okay.
yeah, that's why I haven't been yeah.
Okay. So, yeah, so the way I put everything that we need in the agendas for the week.
Okay.
That way it's all in one place and it keeps the assignment section from getting cluttered and people not being able to find the right place to turn in assignments. So
Yeah.
a lot of these things you're not turning in on Blackboard. I'm having you put them into the portfolios.
Okay.
Um,
That
so
kind of answers it.
is that gonna work? I do intend to post a reminder in Blackboard. I didn't do that this last week and I apologize for that, but I do intend to post it like on Thursday or Friday morning, a reminder of what needs to be done before the next class.
Okay. Yeah, that would help.
Okay. So I'll make
Okay.
sure that I do that. I dropped the ball this last week, but I will have it and be running with it for this week. Okay.
All right. Sounds
And
good.
if you ever have any questions, please email or use Google Chat and contact me. Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Yep. You're welcome.
So pretty much the only thing that we have to we're not turning anything in, we're just putting it into the portfolio.
Right. Yeah. This week you don't have anything you're going to submit on Blackboard. You're just putting these things into the portfolio this week.
Oh, okay. So we're just okay, that's what you were explaining. Okay.
Yeah.
I get it.
I know
So
you.
we only got those two. Only the Alice in Wonderland and the first assignment.
Yeah, those are the two that you will be putting into your portfolio this week. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Sorry about any confusion.
Oh, it wasn't. You did a good job at explaining, better than the other teachers.
Okay. I won't ask who your other teacher was because I don't want to know. But I will say that if there are confusions, please ask, because sometimes when I think something is perfectly clear, it's not.
Okay, I'll make sure I will, because I didn't understand last night. And at first I didn't want to ask, but I was like, well, since no one's saying anything, I might as well.
Yeah, no, you should. And I'm glad. I appreciate you, taking the hit for the team there and stepping up and saying, well, to be honest, I just didn't get it. And I need to hear that. I need to know when students are not understanding things or when they're misunderstanding things, because how else am I supposed to? I don't want to spend time going over things people already understand and know as if they don't. I want to use our time for the things that we need to work on together. So anyway, that's just my thought. But yeah, if you ever need any clarification or help understanding, whether it's directions I've given or something in the book, you just let me know.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Have a good day.
You too.